Hey guys, it's C-Mac here. Today we're going to talk about Spring Boot application, and in fact we're going to build a Spring Boot application in a few minutes. It's going to be very fun and awesome video. You're going to learn all you need, all the things that you need in order to start working with Spring Boot and build RESTful application, build web applications. But if you're already familiar with Spring MVC, you know Spring is a basically dependency injection framework. And dependency injection, if I want to put it in a simple way, imagine you have a function that receives an object called product, right? And imagine you start creating an instance of a product within your function, right? If you build the system this way, this is going to be very tightly coupled. So your product creation process will basically be very tightly coupled with your function, right? This is not a good thing in a software development. We always want to make sure we leverage loosely coupled components so we can basically make changes easily. So dependency injection will basically help you fix this problem by outsourcing the object creation process. And what that means is basically, let's say you want to call the function, on a product, that order product. Instead of creating that product within that function, you build the product outside and you just pass it as a parameter. You basically inject it to a function that you have for your ordering, for example, mechanism. So when you pass the object, you're basically injecting that dependency. In Spring MVC, we had a concept called Autowire, right? So basically, your Spring container will manage all those instances that you need to work with. If you need, connection to database, you need to, talk to a service, you need to talk to a, other page. Basically, you can Autowire all those dependencies without being worried about their internal structure. When you develop Spring MVC application, you will encounter a lot of boilerplate, setting up, basic things like dispatcher servlet, put the resources, add this, add that. So you spend a day or two, I don't know, in configuring, you spend a lot of time configuring those components in order to get to a point that you can actually build your product. And that's a lot of pain, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of complexity. It's not a production grade. A lot of people might take different approach when they actually build a product. So that's going to introduce a lot of uncertainty to a project. So Spring Boot basically resolves this problem by providing a fast way in order to start the real development on your product. I'm going to actually build a website that uses a H2 database memory. And for testing purpose, we're going to actually insert, read, update data, and we're going to build basically a small RESTful API using Spring Boot. And we're going to actually read and write some data to an in-memory database. You can, of course, apply this concept to any SQL database like MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, whatever database you're comfortable with. So we're going to learn how to document our API using Swagger in the short amount of time, and we're going to do all the mapping, all you need to know in order to get comfortable with Spring Boot. And if you're going for an interview, this is the video you want to watch. If you're getting interviewed for Spring Boot or microservices architecture. So why Spring Boot is a good fit for microservices? So when you build a monolithic application, you're dealing with one huge, humongous application, right? Which is not easy to maintain, not easy to integrate. It's written in one probably legacy application like PHP. You have a lot of tightly coupled component. They're tightly reading from a specific IP. So very bad architecture, right? And it's actually hassle and to deal with. So the modern approach is microservices. Basically, you build components, very small components, highly cohesive and loosely coupled. Those are the concepts you want to follow in microservices. They do one thing very small but really, really well. For example, imagine in Amazon.com, your cart component, your checkout component, and your search component, and your homepage component, your recommendation engine. Those are different services. Those are different APIs that basically they talk to each other in order to serve you in. So you log into, for example, a website. It says, sorry, our search function is down, not the entire search. That means that service, that small piece is down. So there's a lot of good things in microservices. They bring a lot of basically advantages to a product, and one of them is the entire application won't go down if one service dies, right? Only one piece will basically being trusted. So the second thing is you can scale only part of the application instead of the entire application. Imagine it's Black Friday and Amazon wants to, let's say, scale their recommendation system or checkout. They only need to scale that specific piece instead of the entire application. So it's very flexible architecture. One big benefit in microservices I want to tell you about is when you build microservices, you can use different technologies and tech stacks. Remember, we used to use one technology and all the job postings and everything was like, okay, we're looking for specific ASP.NET 3.5 developer. And those days are gone, in my opinion. And nowadays, we all need to basically have diverse skill set because in modern technology, in modern application development world, like microservices, you can deal with different technologies since they're API. So imagine you have for example, ordering department. They are using Spring Boot and Spring Cloud, architecture for their underlying technology with MySQL. And now on the other side, let's say you have another team and they are like, I don't know, their product registration or third-party integration team. They are developing their system with Node.js because of their specific architecture. And you have a backend team who's in charge of, for example, processing and analytics and all those things. They're running Python with Django on their web platform. So the good thing, the beauty of microservices is all these components, they are talking over HTTP, right? And few methods, which is get, put, post, delete, things like that. So they're only exposing some methods over HTTP, and they can talk basically to the external world via those APIs. But under the hood, they are using their own technologies and no one cares about it. So you will see a lot of companies now, they're using a bunch of tech stacks, and because of the microservices architecture, and basically microservices will allow you to use the right technology for the job. If you are building a highly intensive I/O application, let's say for one piece of your application, you definitely want to make sure you leverage a Node.js. But at the same time, if you are working on a specific feature that requires Spring Boot, that requires .NET, by all means, you can go ahead and use it as long as APIs work well together. So that basically gives us a lot of flexibility, and that's how a lot of modern applications work, microservices, and of course, containers, which we'll have a separate video on that. So I don't want to make this video too long. I want to tell you just, we're going to build a Spring Boot application shortly. It's going to take just very little time, and you're going to learn everything about Spring Boot application. One more thing I want to tell you, in the next Java Spring category video, I'm going to actually start talking about and show you everything you need to know about Spring Cloud in one video. We're going to talk about the Eureka naming server, Zoo, API gateway, Zipkin, Hystrix, Actuator, and all those ribbon and feign, all those things in one video. It's so simple. You're going to learn, you're going to leverage Netflix Spring Cloud library, and you can follow their pattern and build awesome microservices. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right, we're going to start by going to start.spring.io, and we're going to create a Maven project. That's our dependency management system, and we're just going to go ahead with .com.example.youtube, and we're going to name the artifact demo or my app. All right, so we're going to add a few dependencies here, and we're going to add web. We're going to add JPA, since we'll be working with H2 database, in-memory database. So we need JPA to work with database. So this is the database. This is the basically Java persistence library, and this is a web, which is basically provides all the boilerplate code, Tomcat plus servlet to run our application. Remember, Spring Boot is not a web server, right? It comes with different configuration. One of them here, we're running with Tomcat web server. And I'm going to add web tools, which web tools basically it's for development to, it comes with something called live reload. Basically, you don't have to restart your server every single time you change the code, which makes your life much easier. So as you can see here, I have 4 basically dependencies here, and I can just go ahead and download the project. I'm going to open this. Still downloading, a little bit of time. All right. And now we're going to go ahead and extract it to my Spring Boot YouTube folder. All right. Now we're done with this part. We're going to go ahead to our Spring and we're going to go import existing Maven project, since our dependency management is Maven. So Gradle is the other one, but in this case, we're going to use Maven since it's my preferred dependency management system. All right, we're going to go ahead and import my app, pom.xml. We're going to wait a little bit down here, right hand. You see it's building my workspace and my application is ready. And as you can see, I have a full working Spring Boot application here, which is so awesome. And in Spring MVC, if you are used to Spring developing systems under Spring MVC environment, we had to set up the dispatcher servlet. We have to set up the POM XML. In POM.xml, in Spring MVC, you have to figure out what version, what dependency goes with what. So there's a lot of complexity and basically boilerplate, and you have to set up the dispatcher servlet, things like that. Those are like really time-consuming processes, and we are now actually can go ahead and run our application. This basically makes our development cycles very, very easy and fast, so we can develop a lot of services with Spring Boot. Here, our application, it says it's up and running. So I right-clicked on the project and just ran it as a Spring Boot application, and this is what I'm seeing. It says your Tomcat started on port 8080, and basically the application is ready here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at localhost 8080. When you see this page, it means you are on the right track, and the reason it's not showing us anything because we haven't configured any controller basically to control the flow of our application. Now we're going to go ahead in this section and do that. So remember, when I want to create a new controller, so we use packages in order to logically separate our code, so it makes it more efficient for other developers or ourselves to manage the code. So I'm going to create a few packages here. So usually how we do it, the way we do it, we do com example that YouTube. This is just logically I'm trying to separate the pieces of my software. And in this here, if you look, I'm going to say my app, and I'm going to create a sub package. So if you see com example YouTube my app, up to here is the same, and now here I'm going to say dot controller, and I'm going to create another one. It's called entities. Well, we could create one for our services. Usually in real life applications, what you want to do, you want to actually do a services layer, and then also you can have a DAO layer, which is your data access layer, which basically this layer talks to your service layer. Your service layer makes the request to DAO. DAO now knows how to get the data, but in service layer, we only have interfaces, so we can have different implementation for accessing the data. One service might actually connect to a different API. Another one might connect to a SQL Server database to get data. So we just implement our interfaces and services, but the real implementation goes to DAO, and then from controller we talk to the service. We tell service, go ahead and get customer data. So the service layer doesn't know all the details because it's going to just delegate it to the DAO layer. So 3 sections. We start with controller, goes to service, goes to DAO. So in this case, we're just going to keep it simple. This is for real life applications. My application my app application.java, this is the starting point of your application. It's a Spring Boot application. It means it tells Spring Boot to run your application, and this is your entry point to the program, right? So this is very obvious. Now from here, I actually need a controller to basically send my user to a part that I want to. Well, in this project, we're going to actually create a basically product module. Imagine you're working for an e-commerce platform, and then you're in charge of basically building a service, building a module for a product. We're going to say we're going to have product controller. Perfect. And we're going to tell Spring that, hey, this is REST controller. And as you can see, we're going to tell this is a REST controller. You can actually have just the controller, and your Spring Boot application will basically can return a web page if it's not a RESTful application. And of course, you're going to have in your templates, you can use template engines like Timelift. Do not use just JSP simplifies. Just use template engines like Timelift, which will make your application much faster, easier to manage, and more professional. Page. I'm going to just send a welcome message that say hi. So I'm going to map whatever address that ends with slash. So we have localhost 8080/welcome. I'm just going to map it to a method called say hi. Doesn't matter whatever name you want to put for the method. All the requests that is coming to my /welcome will be directed to this method, and this method is just going to return a string says welcome to product page. Awesome. So let's go ahead and see if this works. So if you pay attention, our application actually automatically is rebooting, so I don't have to keep rebooting the server, and that's because of the dev tools that we put in the Spring.initializer project. All right, let's restart this. It did, and then we're going to go to a welcome page, and here's your welcome to product page. So perfect. So any request that ends with this URL will be mapped to this function. HTTP comes with a bunch of methods. One of them is get, one of them is post, one of them is put, one of them is delete. You have option and things like that. So we're going to focus in this tutorial on get, post, put, and delete, so we can actually build a CRUD application that can interact with the database. Of course, you will see how to connect to in-memory database. You can connect it to any type of database. All right, now I'm ready to actually build another mapping here that is called /product. All right, and here we are using basically JSON as a part of Spring Boot application, and automatically embeds JSON. So basically we can convert POJOs, Java objects, to JSON format that is consumable for other applications. Don't worry, it's a very easy concept I'm going to show you. So just remember that JSON converts POJOs, Java objects, right? Just simple Java objects to JSON. All right. You got that? And I'm just going to put this here as a comment so you have it. So get product, and this get product is basically will be mapped to this function. We're going to product, perfect, public product, and we're going to say this method called main get product. Well, if you pay attention here, I am telling this method, if you receive product request, right, get mapping, go get it, it's going to return a product, but it says I don't have any product. I'm saying no worries, I'm just going to go ahead and create a class that basically creates that object. So what we're going to do, we're going to put these in entities, and it's going to be as easy as this. All right, so we're going to say this class basically defines, it's a blueprint for a product. It has ID, integer ID. We got here private string product name, and name. And of course, we're going to have a private int. We're going to assume the price is integer for now, just to keep the method simple. So as a Java developer, we know when we create a class, we need to create getters and setters. And basically this is abstraction. And we know combination of methods and properties called encapsulation, when we put all of them in one package, which is called class. All right, so we know encapsulation, we know abstraction. Now we're going to create one public construction. So basically, whoever wants to create a new product, this method, this will be the first method that will get called, right? And it's going to be a product. We're reviewing all the Java concepts, but it's just always nice to just, review all these concepts. So actually, instead of that, I'm going to create an empty constructor, and you will see why. And then I'm going to create one constructor with all the parameters. So when I want to create a new product, I can actually simply call this and construct a new object. Well, the reason I use this empty constructor is to make JPA, Java Persistence Library, happy, because you will see if you don't put this constructor, you will get an error. For now, I'm just going to comment it, but remember, when you work with JPA, you need to put this empty constructor. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say we have a get product, and now we have a product. Perfect. Now I'm going to actually define a product called my product, and it's going to be equal new product. ID is going to be 1, name it's going to be product A, and the price is going to be $10. Awesome. So we have a product, and what we're going to do, we're going to actually return my product. Cool. So we do have a my product, and it's very simple. We just created a product, and we're returning this POJO, this Java object, to our controller, but we're expecting to see a JSON because of something called Jackson in our application. Let's see if that actually is happening. So from here, we're going to go to product, and what's actually happening, yes, we are converting Java object that we just created as a response, as a JSON response to our end user. If you are a Linux user, you can use curl, command curl. There is a tool called Postman. If you're not familiar with it, just go ahead and download Postman, and basically you can test your application. It gives you a bunch of awesome features. It's a very great product. If you take a look, if I send a request now, I will receive a response here. You can actually convert it to different type. You can have the raw response, you can have the pretty one, you can manage the headers, you can actually pass authorization, you can send response. This is a very complete tool in order to develop RESTful API and test them, basically. Postman. But for now, we're just going to stick with this guy. Now we're going to send a bunch of products back to user. So what if someone wants to see a list of products? So that's very easy. So we're going to actually have a list of the thing that we're going to send. The only difference is just our method name. We're going to actually create few products. All right, we're gonna say P2, P3. I could put this in a static like block, so when I construct an object, so I don't have to rebuild this product. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead and put this and initiate them in every single method. I know I'm duplicating the code, but the point is here to just understand, because we're gonna move these to database by the end of this video. Now you can see I have 3 products. So I'm expecting to have a list of products, product, and I'm going to name it my products. And this is going to be equal to new array list. It's going to be one array list. And I'm going to say, okay, my products is going to be that we'll be adding products called P1. All right. And I'm going to add another 2 as well, and I'm going to have the P3. All right, so we're going to now go down here and return my products. So, well, if someone sends request to product, they will receive a product. If someone sends request to /products, they will receive a list of products. So let's prove that's the case. Products returns bunch. So from this point, I'm going to go ahead and use Postman, because if I want to send a post request, I cannot do that through web browser. So let's see if we can send a request. And here we go. We just got the response from our endpoint. Connect this application to a database so we can actually read these values from a database. That will be much, much nicer than what we're running here right now. Let's do that. Go back to your product. We only have a class called product. So instead of actually creating a database and run all those commands and do create database, and this is the field primary key, this is that, instead of running those SQL, I'm just going to tell Spring Boot that this is an entity. So the beauty of this is Spring will automatically be creating a database from this product class, because I'm annotating this by this an entity annotation. So I'm going to actually say this is going to be my ID. And if you wanted to create an auto increment ID, you can actually add that. We can remove it, or we can just keep it for now. And these are going to be just simple fields. We do have getters and setters. What I'm going to actually do here, I'm going to add a toString method. And you know why we do that? The reason we override toString is because we want to have a human friendly output when we actually print our object, whatever product, let's say, we make. If we call this toString, we're going to actually see something nice. Otherwise, Java will just return an @ symbol followed by a hash code, which is not nice. All right, so perfect. Let's go and see what's going to happen. What we're going to do, we're going to actually clean this. Let's rerun this application, see what's happening. Well, it says Tomcat started, and it's running on 8080. So let's confirm that. We are running on 8080. Well, if you remember, we added a dependency called H2 to our application. Let me show you that dependency once more. You have a dependency here called H2, right? Remember? And H2 is basically a memory database. And as you can see, I can access the H2 by just going to the localhost /H2 console. And this is what I see. Make sure you log in using SANO password and then testdb MEME. This is the right account you want to see. And as you log in, you will immediately see the database. It's running, and it's got 3 fields automatically there. That's very, very nice. So remember, we used to have all those, set up in SQL and building tables in MySQL or SQL Server. But right here, we told Spring Boot, hey, we want to annotate this with entity. So we want to create a table from this product so we can read and write to it. And as you can see, Spring automatically did that for us. So what I'm going to just do right now, I'm going to add a file here, right click and go to here. And I'm going to add a data.sql file. And well, basically to load some information to our system, I'm going to write just SQL. If you don't have the SQL, it doesn't show up, go ahead and download the plugin. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll help you with that. All right, I'm going to name this to data.sql. Perfect. And I'm going to say insert into. What's the database table? What's the table? It is called. We're going to use AA and BB. So we have a different style here. And then let's add the last one, which is like $30 in CC. All right. Well, the application, it will be rebooted automatically, and we will be kicked out of this session because this is a database, in-memory database. We'll wait for the server to come back. And we are having an error. That's a very nice error. All right. So, well, let's see what is going on with this error. So if you look, it says there is no entity management insert into product value. So what is going on in here? Well, Java is basically telling me that there's no entity manager factory, and so basically there's no bean, there is no connection to our database. So basically Java is having trouble, Spring Boot having trouble running this SQL command and connecting to my database. So the reason I'm showing you these errors, because these are like real life errors, and I just don't want to always write the happy path, so you guys get a chance to see the errors, possible errors that might happen to your application. Now we're going to address this problem, hopefully. So in your main application, if you look, we are running all applications in component com example my app. Well, this is because we don't have component scan here. That's why Java is not able to pick up all the sub packages and all the possible beans that is sitting in this application. Since I'm putting this product under a different package, but it is a sub package, Java was not able to basically create a bin and connect the database. So once I put that component scan, basically I'm telling Spring Boot, go ahead and look at all the sub packages of this my app, com example YouTube my app, and see if you can find what you're looking for. So perfect. Still says you're having trouble, and let's go down. And I think it says now, it says fail to execute this command. Well, we're going to go ahead and see why is that. Well, it says insert into product values 2 and 3. Okay. Just going to restart the application. Perfect. Looks like we have no error this time. And we're going to log in and we're going to look at our product. Perfect. So one thing I want to show you here before I forget. If you go to your application.properties and you type in H2, H2 console enable, I'm going to put basically value true, the console enable, and then I'm going to show all the SQL commands so you guys can see actually when we start the application. There you go. This is what I want to show you. So Hibernate, since I activated, I want to see that, take a look at the SQL commands so I understand what Spring is doing here. It says from Hibernate, I drop the table if exists, and then I create the table product and I insert the value that you ask me to. And the reason all this is happening, because I put this in a folder under resources called data, and basically when you start your application, Spring will look at this folder resource and we'll look for this data. And since we annotated this product with add entity, it knows that it has to create a table for me called product. So I want to actually change this application so we can read all these values from our database. In the service center, I'm just going to directly go ahead and create a class. Actually, I do need to create an interface, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm going to create an interface, and I'm going to call this product JPA repository. Perfect. I'm telling Java that I'm going to use this interface that extends JPA repository. When I extend JPA repository, basically I'm telling Spring Boot I need the connection to a database for product. I hope this makes sense. This is very simple, actually. This is all you need to implement in order to connect to your database. So I'm telling basically pick the entity product that I created, right? So simple. And this is the ID of my product. And since the product has a type of integer, as you can see, I'm just going to tell the JPA repository I have this basically table, which is annotated by entity, and this is the field. Well, that's all I needed to do in order to make connection to database, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and actually update my controller so I read the values from database. We'll go back here, and what we're going to do here, we're going to say, let's actually start by returning, instead of adding all these guys manually, what we're going to do, we're going to actually return, let's do that. We're going to return, we don't actually need that. We're going to say return, and we need to call this basically service in order to fetch data from our database, right? And the way we can do that actually is by going back to our controller and creating the connection to database. How do we do that? So I want to say I have a private field, and that's called product JPA, product JPA repository. And I'm going to say this is a product service. I'm just going to name it this so we can get the data from the service. All I'm going to do, I'm going to just annotate this with Autowire. So this is the beauty of Spring framework. So dependency injection and IOC, remember we talked about it. It's basically, it's not dealing with the complexity of object creation. Basically, you have a pool, and you are telling Spring Boot, you go ahead and create an object and inject it to this object. This is a dependency injection. And I'm basically wiring this component, which is a service. It knows how to go ahead and fetch data from database, get it from the service layer. So if I go now here and say, okay, product service dot, I'm going to say find all, please. So find all means I'll be returning a list of here. If you look, this interface, the reason it was interface because it's going to implement the actual method find all. And if you see it says list, I'm going to return a list of product. Now we are ready actually to go ahead and test our application. So again, if we test, let's make sure we have information in our table. We do. Now we're going to go ahead and to Postman, and we're going to initiate the command. Perfect. We're having a big error here. The point that I was referring to, if you recall, when I was creating, let me go back. So we got the error, it did not work. And why is that? If you go back to my product, remember I told you we need to have a default constructor to make JPA happy. That's what it is, because if you don't have that JPA, it's not going to be able to create. It says no default constructor for this. So basically Hibernate is not able to initiate the command. So hopefully this fixed the problem. We added the default constructor. Now we're going to go ahead and reinitiate the request. Perfect. We just got a response, and now we are reading data, as you can see, from the database. It's coming AA, BB, CC. That's all it takes to retrieve information from database using Spring Boot. I'm going to add one more piece here called get mapping. And in this get mapping, I'm going to say, okay, go to product, and then in the products, I want to say, just go ahead and get me information for product number 2. How do I do that? So this is actually quite simple as well. The way we do that, we go here, we say, okay, this is going to be a public. I'm going to return a product, right? Because because this is going to, at the end of the day, return a product. Awesome, not product controller, just product. And this is going to be get product by ID, just the name. And take a look. This is a path, right? This is a path. This is a URL. This is a URI. This is something that we refer to when we want to navigate. And we're going to basically fill in this with some data, right? It's going to be basically products/1, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to just send me information for product number 3, right? By ID. I want to search it by ID. You can search it by anything else. You can basically write search functionality in the same way, but in this case, we're just going to go ahead with ID. Look at the path. I get the path variable, and it's very easy, and it's integer, and it's called ID. Well, so I have a path variable called ID, and I want to pass it basically in here and search for it, and hopefully I find it so I can return it to my user. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to say return. What is it? I'm going to say product service knows how to go get all those information from database dot find, and here I'm going to say find by ID. Just return the product, and it's going to be find ID dot get okay. There is a method, there is a basically methodology that's called HATOS. I hope I'm spelling it right. Yeah, and then this basically it's creating a resource that contains a link to your resource. So we're talking about resources. These are all resources, product/product. These are called resources because they point to different part of my application, and they're basically returning something. But HATOS basically says if you return a product, you can basically return all the links related to photos of this product. How do you do that? With HATOS, basically you can return the address of all the images that is related to this product to the user. So if they want to make a request to the photos and show them on their website, they can do that very easily. But for now, I'm just going to say find it by ID and go get the product. And this is actually happening. If I go ahead and do 3, it's going to go ahead and get the 3. If I do 1, it's going to do 1. If I do 2 products, it's going to get all of them. So basically, we wrote a search function based on the ID, and we are getting all the data from our database. Very simple and easy. See, all one line of code. That's all it takes to basically build this. Well, now we're going to actually run 2 more methods before finishing this video. One of them is a delete method. We're going to actually remove an item from our database, and the way we're going to do that, you can guess. Actually, instead of get mapping this time, we're going to actually say actually let's work for now, as I said, on delete mapping. All right, we're going to tell Java, okay, we're going to delete an item. This is going to be basically, let's say it's going to be products/ID. We're going to actually copy this guy and paste it here. So this is going to point to the same URL endpoint. It's going to be whatever /products/ID, but remember, using different HTTP method. So you can perform different functionalities, different actions. You can send different actions, so requests to HTTP endpoint. And that's what we're doing here. We're sending get mapping. Now we're sending get delete mapping to the same URL, Very simple. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up. We are going to tell our application this time that we did that. We're going to say delete product by ID. Same thing. We're going to pass the ID, but this time we're going to tell the service, go ahead and you can guess what? Delete by ID, and ID we know it's going to be this guy. Well, it says cannot return product, and this makes sense. For now, I'm just going to return string. Let's not return anything, and I'm going to return 1 for now to just say we're actually deleting. So the way we tested, we go back here, we go to delete this time, and we go to products, we go /2. Well, it's giving me an error. Let's go back and see why. Yes, I told the service that I'm returning string, but I'm actually not. Let's wait for the application to reboot. Application rebooted. Products /2, we're sending delete method. So basically it deleted, it should delete the product and return 1. It returned 1, but we don't know if we deleted actually the products. Let's make a request to the endpoint products. Of course, get, not delete. Well, we just removed element number ID 2 from our database. If you want to confirm that, you can do that for sure by going to H2 console. In H2 console, if you go to this guy, you can select this and run it. We just remove the second element from the database. So easy. All right. We are going to go ahead with the post mapping. We're going to add a new product to the same point. So now you can tell me how to add it. We're just going to make request to the product because there's no ID involved. Now we're going to say add new product. And what we're going to do, we're just going to say this is a product because there's no ID here. And well, for the product, this is interesting. For the product, if you look at our response, we need to send something like this. We need to add something. How do we do that? So we need to actually send the product information, ID, name, and price, things like that, to the application so application can inject it to our database. Well, we're going to look at it. It's so easy. Well, what we're going to do here, we're going to say when you request, send a request. When you send the post request, this is going to be post. When you send a post request to an endpoint, you need to put all the information that you want me to process in the request body. So remember, we put all the information in request body, and we'll basically unpack it here and add it as an object, POJO object in our method. So the way we do that, we say we want to have @request body. When you make an request to an endpoint, HTTP endpoint, you can actually put some information inside the body and basically put it in an envelope and send it with your request. This is what we're going to do. We're going to send some data. What data? And that data is product. And I'm going to name it product, right? And if you look, this is going to be coming from this entity package. And we are expecting the user to send us a product from endpoint, from the get post method. And now here, we're going to actually say product service that actually can save this product entity, right? And now we're done here. So product, not big product, all right, because this is the variable name basically. And at the end, it says, do you want to return something? Of course, I can actually send the path to the new resource, but again, I'm going to keep it simple for now. I'm going to resend okay, and we post it. We're going to go ahead and test this. So in order to test this guy, I'm going to copy this guy, which is a response from my method. Let's run the application, make sure it's running. So we have 1, 2, 3, and the reason 2 is back because we rebooted the application, and every single time you reboot the application, this file gets executed since it's an in-memory database, and after reboot, basically it will be refreshed, and so we get all the data into database back. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy this guy we're gonna again, in order to review the things that we did, we're gonna initiate a delete request. We're gonna remove product number 2 again, and we're gonna go ahead and see if we removed it. Yes, we did. Now we're actually gonna go ahead and initiate a new one, which is called post method. So as you know, our post method was supposed to go to endpoint called /products, but the method that we're going to use is called post. It's happening here, and we're going to go to body, and we're going to say, okay, this is what we are about to send. This is actually here. This was our response from the endpoint. Now we're going to say in the body, because we told Spring Boot we're promising that we're going to send the product in the product category, product in the request body, and we initiate a post request to this endpoint. Well, we initiated that, and Spring says it's okay because we told Spring to return that. And now again, if you go back and now initiate a request, let's go back to post. We go to body. We're going to actually this time create ID 100 or ID 4, and we're going to add a product called AAA, and the price is 1000. So we're going to initiate this command. We got OK, and now we're going to go ahead and send this command. And as you can see, the new product has been added to the database. And if you go back and run your database, you will see that we actually, there you go, we have a new product in our database. So I know there's a lot more into a Spring Boot application, but my goal in with this video was to basically introduce you and show you how easy it can be to create in a Spring Boot application. Last thing before I finish this video, I want to show you is how to document your API, because it is very important. At the end of the day, you're building this API, another team, other people, they are going to use your application. And of course, you want to make sure you always have a good documentation for your API. Here I have two dependency. You can find them. It's called Swagger, the tool that we're about to use. We just need to go back to our pom.xml and add a new dependency. And add a new dependency called Swagger. Control A and Control Shift F will format all the page. Perfect. So we have a Swagger and Swagger UI. As you can see, the Spring is going to reboot now. I'm going to go ahead and configure Swagger, and so we can see how it works. All you need to do, you go back to your basically my app where you have all your configuration. You add a new class, and basically we add a Swagger configuration, whatever you want to name it. And in this Swagger configuration, we're going to enable one thing. One is we're going to tell Spring this is a configuration, and the reason we're saying that indicates the class declares one or more bean method that may be processed by the Spring container to generate the bean, and so it becomes available during the runtime. The next thing you want to basically enable here, it's enable Swagger 2, and immediately becomes available because I just added a dependency to Spring Boot. And all right, and then what we are going to do here now, we're going to go ahead and add a bean cool. And in bean, we're going to actually have a public method. Let's redefine this doc API, and I'm going to do actually return new, perfect, and it's going to be documentation type .swagger 2. All right, we can basically use different things here like .add app info. You can produce what type of output you're generating. You can add your licenses and things like that. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and keep it simple and basically run our application like that. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and make sure my Maven is updated, and then we're going to go ahead and run our application, see what is happening. All right, so we're going to run this application. Okay. Perfect. So let's go back. And here's the Swagger UI.html, and your app is running. So if you pay attention down here, underneath, we do have a basic controller, and we do have a product controller. That is so great. So whoever is looking at my application can actually see what I have here. This is very interesting. If you want to post a new product, you can just go ahead and use this method. It says send a post method to my products to add a new product, and here's how you work with it. Oh, this is awesome. And say, actually it says try it out. So you can go ahead and basically execute this command. And here, this is the command that you can initiate with your curl command. And this is a request. It says response okay. We got code 200, which is everything looks good, and all the codes that they're standard. 404 is not found. So you can find all the information related to my API in here. Let's go ahead and run the first one. It says okay, try it out, execute, and as you can see, I was able to execute, and here's a response body. I got a response. So if I want to try a different one, let's go and see if we can basically get a specific product. It says you need to send the ID. I'm going to say just select the number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and execute. It's sending me number 1. I'm going to go ahead and send number 2. It's sending me number 2 down here. You can of course do authentication and add a bunch of those things, but for now I think I have achieved my goal to show you how to basically add Swagger API documentation. If you're working as a team, you can tell people just go ahead and take a look at my API endpoint. I have a product here, my view, everything is here. So you have a solid documentation of your API, and here's your basically V2 API. This is all basically a JSON definition of your application, and it's showing all the parameters you receive and you send. Very awesome framework. So with Spring Boot, we learned how to create a RESTful API here.
All right, guys, I hope you liked it. And in this video, we learned how to build a Spring Boot application from scratch. We basically did a CRUD application, and we read, we deleted, we created, and we searched for an item in our database, in our in-memory database, which was H2. So again, remember, Spring Boot helps you basically have a faster development cycle. Instead of spending time configuring things, you can immediately get into business and start developing your application. It can be either a REST API, which majority of Spring Boot application nowadays goes to that purpose, and also of course a web application by following microservices pattern. So stay tuned. I hope you liked it. Leave any comments below. I'm sure you guys can figure out the rest of our application, if you want to add more features. But any specific question, please leave comments in section below, and I'll try to answer all the questions. And I hope to see you next time. Subscribe to my channel. Bye.